Welcome to the 38 Weeks to Go podcast. And we're having our first guest of the season, Game Week 1 leader, no other than Alex Mutune. So,
Thanks for having me, Nash.
welcome. So, you've had an impressive start to the season. How does it feel to be number one in Game Week 1?
A lot of pressure there. I know it sounds impressive, but I kind of made a few mistakes with my team. Some of them didn't play, but I'm happy with the position I am so far, which is good.
Okay. I see your name is Don't Bottle It This Year. What was the thinking behind that name?
Exactly what it means. Every year I've been playing this. I happen to start off really well, and then mid-season, maybe after December, after Christmas, of the Christmas games, I just get off it and I get into work mode and I forget that I have to change my team or look at differentials, and I just end up dropping the league after that.
That's part of the reason this podcast has the slogan, take it 1 week at a time, because around Christmas is when people just start dropping off. It's 38 weeks,
Yeah.
Hey, so from when you made your team, did you think you'd just be number one straight away?
I knew I'd be, at least in our league, I thought I'd be top 3 to top 5. Just talking about my team a little bit, I had a pretty template team with the basics being in there, but I had a few differentials who I knew were going to keep me at top 3, top 5. So yeah, that's what's helped me. I was confident I'll be top 3, top 5 at least.
Wow. In episode 1, I talked about having different styles of making a team, and I talked about a balanced team and a strong team. And when I look at your team, I can see your first 11 is just, you're not playing around. I mean, you have Haaland and Salah. That is a tough one to balance out the rest of the team. So what were you thinking? How were you planning your team for Game Week 1? Were you looking towards the future, or was it just like, let me just get out there?
So the first thing I thought about, everyone had to have Haaland. Last season, I didn't put Haaland on because he was new and I had Kane on. And I really regretted it because by game 2, I was trying to switch back to Haaland. So he had to be on my team no matter what, because whether he did well or he didn't, most of us fantasy players, were going to pick him. The Salah decision, I had to give up a few people in my midfield, because the template of what most people were thinking was that having Rashford and Fernandes was a good idea, or having at least another Arsenal player with Saka there. So I either have Saka with Martinelli or Saka with Odegaard. So I kind of gave up those two to have Mitoma there, and I gave up a striker and I put João Pedro there to start with, who was looking pretty good for the first five game weeks. So that's how I managed to work in Salah. And I was really, really, really confident that I probably was going to captain Salah in game week 2.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they have a good fixture coming up. It should be, well, it might not be the high-scoring fixture it was last season, but I think it'll be a good game. Liverpool, Bournemouth, yeah?
Yeah.
So, I see you have a 3-5-2. Is that what you're going to be looking to going forward with for the next game week or two? Are you going to make
it was the plan.
Mm-hmm.
Am I going to make a change? It was the plan starting off, but obviously I got Stones in there and Gabriel, and of course both of them didn't play. Gabriel got a few minutes towards the end of the Arsenal game, so that kind of disappointed me a little bit, and I kind of sacrificed not having Chilwell there. But the plan was always to have a 3-5-2 formation.
Okay.
Especially because of the amount I spent in my midfield and having both Haaland and Salah in the squad.
Yeah, I'm looking at your midfield. You have Mitoma, Rashford, Saka, Mbeumo, and Salah. That is solid. Do you feel like you want to change anything from this team?
I can't really tell you. On Friday, I might go nuts on my fingers and decide to change a few things. You don't know. But 2 of those decisions that I made there were expected goals or expected assists. Mitoma, I just loved how he played last season. He really shocked me, and that was a completely hard decision, not my decision. And he was, for what he cost, he was my first choice. I could have gone to March as well, because the first 6 game weeks, they do have really good games. But yeah, that pretty much tells you about Mitoma.
Yeah, you sound like you're having...
obviously, not having Salah.
Yeah, no,
sorry.
No, don't worry. No, it sounds like you're having the same problem I was having with Brighton, because it's so hard to pick a player from that midfield. You choose Mitoma, it's Gross who plays, and he scores. You take Gross, it's Enciso who scores. You take Enciso, it's March who scores, and now they got this kid who scored on his debut, and I'm just like, oh goodness, not another one.
Exactly. I feel you
So
there.
Brighton will be a team to follow for sure.
I don't think them losing Caicedo, even losing McAllister, has really changed any of the attacking strength they have. I think that's still
That's
a superb team.
quite crazy, right?
Yeah, it's still a really good team. Even watching them in game week 1.
Who was your vice captain, by the way?
My vice captain was Saka.
And so now will he be your vice captain again? Because I'm assuming you said you're going to have Salah for your captain this coming week.
Yeah, I'll probably put Salah to be captain. I think there's no reason of putting Salah in the team if I was going to back him in the second game week 2. Otherwise, I would have had Martinelli and probably lost Mitoma and had Fernandes, Bruno Fernandes in there.
Okay. Now, is there anything that you've seen so far that has been like, okay, that's why I made that decision? What's the decision you're most happy about with your team so far?
The decision I'm most happy about my team right now is actually putting João Pedro in the team. I wasn't sure what he would perform, but I saw some of his preseason games and he looked like he was going to be dangerous, at least with the expected goals. And I hope he keeps on it. But I'm really happy with putting him there because the alternative was to try Watkins in there. He had better returns than Watkins. So I'm really happy about that. I'm also very happy about at least captaining Haaland.
Okay.
This is the first time Salah hasn't scored in game week 1. Every season has been here. So there was a thought about captaining him. But yeah.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people bitter about that. It's just like the whole thing with Gabriel where he had started for 73 consecutive games and then all of a sudden, nothing. I was one of those people who put him.
Yeah, that was one of. Now, if you ask me what my biggest regret was not having Chilwell in the team and putting Gabriel and Stones in the squad.
Are you a Premier League fan? Like, do you have a team that you support?
Oh yeah, there is. I'm a Liverpool supporter.
Oh, okay. Wow. And you only have Salah. I'm surprised. I thought you'd have Trent Alexander-Arnold.
Well, the thing is, the way the rotation that happens with Man City and Liverpool, you're never sure who's going to play. And the one consistent player is Salah. He's always going to be in the team sheet. As for not having Trent on, he was just too expensive to put on my team if I wanted a midfield like this and Haaland. There was no way he could fit in my team. So yeah, I gave him up. Yeah.
And now, as a Premier League fan and as a fantasy manager, how do you maintain the balance between the two?
Now, here's a big thing. I recently joined a fantasy league that's actually really super competitive. So it makes you think the conversations that happen on that league, which I'm assuming will be exactly like this show, is we're going to be discussing differentials and expected goals and expected assists in a team. And that makes me watch all of the Premier League games I can watch in one day. So I kind of see who's doing what and who's not doing what. I know it's important. It's sometimes playing with your heart is not the best because that happened to me last season and I started with Trent and Salah and the returns weren't good the first half of the season. So I think that shook me and I kind of learned from that process. I'm not a real big Arsenal fan, but if you had Odegaard, Saka and Martinelli in your team last season, you probably did pretty well.
And do you find it hard to choose players from teams that you don't like?
No, I don't. Not when it comes to fantasy. As I said, it's fantasy football has made me watch all the games nowadays. I just don't watch Liverpool because it's my team. I spend the whole Saturday watching the games. I'll spend an evening on Friday watching the game. I'll try watch the Monday night football game as well. Even though it's not a team that I support or like, I'll watch Brighton versus Sunderland if I could, if they're playing each other, just because I want to see who in Brighton is playing. Yeah,
football is king. I get it.
Exactly. There you go. Couldn't have said it better.
And are there any lessons you've learned from the last few seasons that you've been playing that you're going to adapt to this one?
I think the one thing that I've learned from last season in comparison to this season is that it's important to have those players who the differentials, they're a risk to take. I mean, it's important to have, for example, what I'm probably going to do this coming game week. It's important to have Haaland as on the squad. But if you see there's another person who could probably gather more points by me captaining Salah, meaning that I'm betting on most people giving Haaland captaincy and him not giving any returns, while Salah hopefully will give me the returns to edge off a few people in fantasy. So I think that's one thing that I'll start looking at. I'll start looking at game weeks in advance and thinking about what differentials or what moves can I make that other people probably haven't thought of that could give me the extra edge.
Okay. So does that mean you will be bringing Alexander Isak to join your team?
Yeah. So probably not the first 6 game weeks. I mean, he was in the thought process. A lot of Newcastle players actually were in my plans at the beginning of the season. But then you just look at the fixtures they have until game week 6, and they have really hard fixtures. They had a nice first game week last week, and also Alexander Isak playing time. If Wilson is healthy, you don't know if he's going to be rotated. He might not play next game week. He might start off the bench. He's not really reliable starting player for me. It's the same thing with Man City players. You have no idea what Pep is going to do, so you can't rely on your Foden starting or your Grealish starting because he might just decide I'm not going to play them this week.
No, you're right. You're right. It's with that Newcastle squad, it's getting deeper and deeper, and it's harder to know who will be playing each week. Like next week, it might be Wilson for no real reason.
Yeah.
With such unpredictability in the Premier League in this fantasy season, is that why you're leaning towards more stable players, more stable selections?
Yeah, I do. That's exactly where I'm leaning towards. That's why I don't have many Liverpool players. That's why I only have 2 City players, but I thought Stone's going to start. But I've got Haaland, who I know will probably start. And yeah, I rely on players who will for sure get the minutes. That's important to me selecting my squad.
Okay. So, what advice would you give to other managers like myself who's tied second last, who might be looking to replicate your success in the upcoming game weeks? Is there an approach or a mindset, or what do you think? How can you help me get better?
I don't know. There's no, what's the word? There's no one way of looking at fantasy football. I would say most fantasy footballers, as you said, since they watch the Premier League and they are fans, they select players based on the team that they like watching or who's the fanciest. It is important, but sometimes it's important to look at expected goals and assists that they would get in a certain match depending on who they're playing and whether they're playing home or away and how many minutes they get before actually just putting that name on your team sheet. I think that's important. Sometimes just going with the template works instead of taking big risks. Having a template that most people will use and then making a few changes that you think now, based on your heart or your mind, that you think that have. I think that's the only advice I can give.
Okay. You've talked about a template. Where does one get this template? What is the template?
So if you looked at high performers last season, I won't lie to you, I didn't look at Estupinian as a very high valued player. But if you look at most fantasy Premier League teams, they've got him in there because of his returns last season. That's really important. Another player like Mbeumo, he's probably a template player because of how much he costs in comparison to how many returns he'll get because there's no Ivan anymore. So he's probably going to be on penalties and he's probably one of the main attacking threats if Wisa is not there or if Wisa doesn't perform. So such players are template players. Like you just have them. Another one would be having Turner on your team because Turner is very affordable. He's on the bench and you can swap him with someone who you're starting. I've got Onana, but some other people have the Allisons and God knows. But he's affordable, but he's easy to swap in if your main goalkeeper isn't going to have a high chance of getting many returns. So those are the 3 template players are named that probably everyone has.
Okay. So by template, you mean like a predictable, solid starter?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I mean by template, yeah.
Okay. Now, looking ahead, what are your expectations for the second game week? Are there specific matchups or players you're looking to target for points? Is there a fixture that's looking like easy money for you?
As I said, I'm looking forward to that Liverpool game. I'm hoping that I get the returns there. If the players that I'm looking to bring in, that's the only game I'm looking to watch. The players that I'm thinking of bringing in, I think are, well, I can't afford him now until next game week because obviously I made the wrong decision with Stones. Or I believe I made the wrong decision with Stones, who knows. But Ben Chilwell, the way he's been used at Chelsea at the moment, especially with Chelsea having no European football, if he stays healthy and they keep using him on the wing and not as a back, as a wing back, but as a wing forward, I think that's one player I'm hoping to bring in.
Okay.
Well, at least a combination of Chelsea players, because James can do the same thing going on the right, depending on what they're planning to do. Yeah, so those are probably Chelsea defenders are probably who I'm thinking of bringing people.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. And with that, we've come to the end of our interview. I just want to say thank you for being our first guest. I'm really honored that you
Thanks
took
for
the
having me.
time out. And I wish you more success as the season progresses. And I hope we're interviewing you every week.
I hope so too. I hope so too.
All right. Thanks.